Next. Breaking news coming in. Pakistan's ceasefire violation has been punished at the line of control, and Pakistan has been punished at multiple locations, including at crucial Hajipir. So Pakistan has been punished in Punch, in Mendar, in Hajipir, in some other places along the line of control. We've been told that some Pakistan Army soldiers have been killed at the line of control. Some others are injured at multiple locations on either side of the Pir Panjal ranges, and this is in response to ceasefire violations by Pakistan. Those ceasefire violations are now being punished by the Indian Army, and this has now escalated. So initially we were told that only small arms were being used, but it escalated to rockets, and we are told that even artillery and mortars are being used. I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Sunilji Bhatt, who joins us with the latest on the story from the White Night Corps area. Sunilji, what more can you add?
Pakistan is desperately trying to escalate tensions along the line of control. It's desperately trying to push terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir to create mayhem in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is why we are seeing that Pakistan is time and again violating ceasefire along the line of control. It's trying to give cover fire to the terrorists. Our sources are telling us that there is presence of terrorists at the terror launch pads on the other side of line of control. And today also Pakistan violated ceasefire in different sectors along the line of control, and our alert army jawans gave a befitting reply to Pakistan. One Pakistani army soldier was killed in India's retaliatory action, while 8 other Pakistani soldiers were injured. Entire world is fighting COVID-19 pandemic, but Pakistan is spreading another virus, the virus of terrorism. And that is why we are seeing that Pakistan is violating ceasefire along the line of control. It's trying to push terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir. It's giving cover fire to terrorists, but our alert army jawans and alert security forces, both at the line of control as well as at the international border, are alert, and they are giving befitting reply to Pakistan.
Sunilji, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. And we are told that there's a desperate attempt by Pakistan to push in terrorists, especially in Kashmir. We'll track that story very closely. But now I want to shift focus to a big story, the Golden Arrows. That's right, number 17 Squadron. That's exactly what the new Rafales will be when they reach Ambala. They took off from the Merignac Dassault Aviation Facility in France, and they've landed after flying for 7 hours plus non-stop. So there was a French mid-air refueler. The first 5 aircraft, they've landed at the United Arab Emirates. There will be some tests and examination, and then on the 29th, somewhere around between 11 and 12 noon, the aircraft will finally reach Ambala. It couldn't be a moment too soon. It's practically for close to 2 decades that India has waited for new combat fighter jets. Shivarud with our top story.
The sweet growl of jet engines. The roar ripping up the crisp morning air as 5 new Rafale jets blast off from the Merignac airfield in southern France. The jets are finally homeward bound. The combat fighters are being flown home to India by the country's first Rafale pilots. They spent their morning prepping for the ferry flight, and then they were given a send-off by India's ambassador to Paris.
They are superb flying machines being flown by the best pilots in the world. We'd like to thank Dassault for delivering the aircraft on time, the French Air Force and the French government for all the support they've provided. This is going to add a great deal of strength to our air power and defense preparedness, but it is also a powerful symbol of the strategic partnership between India and France.
The 5 Rafales won't be alone in the air. In the first leg of their flight from Merignac to Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, over 5,000 kilometers away, the Indian Rafales will be joined in the air by 2 French Air Force Airbus A330 mid-air refueling aircraft. And this is precisely what that refueling will look like, with the Rafales using a refueling probe to plug into a drogue hose dangling from the tanker jet. This will give the Rafales the fuel necessary for the long non-stop flight across the Mediterranean and across West Asia. In the second leg of their flight, from Al Dhafra in UAE to Ambala in Haryana, their new home, the Indian Rafales will soar out over the Persian Gulf. Over the Arabian Sea, they will be met by two Indian Air Force IL-78 mid-air refuelers. For the final journey home, since the jets cannot fly over Pakistan, they'll fly a circuitous route over Gujarat and curve north towards Ambala. The total distance of this final leg will be over 2,700 kilometers. Once they land, the Indian Air Force won't spare a moment and will work to quickly get the aircraft into combat-ready mode. The Rafale's formidable weapons, the Scalp cruise missile and Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missile are already in Ambala, waiting for their motherships to arrive. Oh, and by the way, if you've been wondering, the RB on the Indian Rafale tails stands for the initials of India's current Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Rakesh Bhadoria. He'll be welcoming the jets to the country not long after they arrive. But come Wednesday, India's tryst with the Rafale finally begins. Bureau Report, India Today.
Incidentally, as Shiv was mentioning, the Rafales will not be flying over Pakistan. But even if they need to punish Pakistan's state-sponsored terror, like the Mirages did at Balakot, the Mirages had to fly into Pakistan and cross the international border. The Rafales won't have to do that. The Rafales, with their Meteors, with their Scalps, and also with the Hammers, will be able to do the job from a standoff distance. And even if they need to punish the Pakistani F-16s, they wouldn't need to cross the international border like Wing Commander Abhinandan had to. But that story in a moment. Just now, let's talk about the political fight. Remember all those allegations in the run-up to the signing of the deal, and also before the aircraft came in. The Congress party today said Rafale are great aircraft, and it was they who actually had decided on this aircraft. So all that politics that we saw, which almost at one point of time appeared to have derailed the deal, well, that's a thing of the past. Now the Congress says these are good aircraft, and this was their decision.
Less than 48 hours before the first batch of game-changer Rafale fighters land in Ambala, Haryana, a full-blown credit war has taken off. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram credited the UPA government with choosing the Rafales for the Indian Air Force.
Why should you protest against a Rafale aircraft? Remember, day one said there is a good aircraft. In fact, it was chosen by the government. There's nothing wrong with the aircraft. There were other issues in the way the contract was handled.
Now let's just rewind to 2 years ago, when in the run-up to the 2019 elections, then Congress President Rahul Gandhi's one-point agenda and poll plank was alleging corruption in the 36-jet deal with France.
That the Prime Minister said it was a very good deal. And I agree with him. It was a very good deal. But it was a very good deal for the Prime Minister and his businessman friend. He paid 1,500 crores for a plane that the UPA had worked out at 700 crores.
From questioning the pricing of the deal,
अब इन्होंने स्वयं कहा 58,000 करोड़ की डील है. राहुल गांधी ने नहीं कहा, कांग्रेस पार्टी ने नहीं कहा, अरुण जेटली जी ने अपने पार्लियामेंट के भाषण में कहा. 58,000 को आप 36 से डिवाइड करिए, क्या नंबर आता है? 1600. तो अरुण जेटली जी, हमें 1600 नंबर आपने दिया है अपने भाषण में.
to daring the Prime Minister himself to a debate on the fighter aircraft.
I would very much like to debate the Prime Minister one-on-one on Rafale, on anything about combat aircrafts. Just give me 20 minutes with the Prime Minister, debate one-on-one on Rafale, and then you decide what is what.
Rahul Gandhi's Chaukidar Chor Hai slogan was aimed at alleging corruption by the Modi government in the Rafale deal. Not only did the slogan backfire, Narendra Modi returned to power with an even bigger majority. The Prime Minister always stood firm on the Rafale deal.
राफेल की कमी आज देश ने महसूस की है। आज हिंदुस्तान एक स्वर में कह रहा है कि अगर हमारे पास आज राफेल होता तो शायद इससे भी नतीजा कुछ और होता।
With Congress's corruption in Rafale deal campaign crash landing, the party and Rahul Gandhi have been left licking their wounds. The question now is, will Rahul Gandhi welcome India's new jets, or are echoes of Chaukidar Chor Hai still ringing in his ears? Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's leave that credit war for a moment and let's now talk about the capabilities of the Rafale. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after Balakot airstrike and the next day, said if India had the Rafale with the scalp missiles, the response would have been different. So how does the Rafale compare, let's say, with the Chinese J-20 or the Pakistani F-16? India Today's defense editor Abhishek Bhalla with this report.
0 to 140 to the west. Whatever you need to get eyes on my location and to PID enemy.
A fiery ascent, born and bred for battle. India's newest combat-ready fighters en route to joining the Indian Air Force. The first 5 Rafales have taken to the skies from France, headed to India. These game-changing jets are due to land at Ambala's Air Force Base on Wednesday. Game-changing because of their superior air power over Chinese fighters.
The big competition to Rafale might come from the Chengdu J-20, which the Chinese claim is a 5th-generation aircraft. But based on a lot of analysis, experts believe it's far from being one. And most importantly, while the Rafale is battle-hardened, having carried out operations in Afghanistan, Syria and Libya, the Chengdu J-20 has never seen any action.
This is China's J-20, the Rafale contender. The Chinese tout these 5th-generation stealth jets as their premier fighter plane and claim it's much more advanced than the Rafale, which is half a generation behind.
The Rafale is far superior to the J-20, which is the Chengdu fighter of China. Even though the Chengdu fighter is claimed to be a 5th-generation aircraft, I do believe the aircraft is probably at best a 3.5 generation aircraft. It's got a 3rd generation engine, the same engine as what we have on the Sukhoi, the AL-30.
We show you how the Rafales fare with China's premier jet, the Chengdu J-20. Remember, China's J-20s use the same engines as Russian Su-30s, which India operates. The Rafale engine is better in terms of reliability, longevity and maintainability. The Rafale's weapons load and fuel load of up to 1.5 times their weight, much more than the J-20s. The Rafale is an omni-role aircraft capable of carrying out at least 4 missions in a single sortie. The J-20s just cannot do that in one go. The Rafale is combat-proven and battle-hardened, used successfully in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria and Iraq. But the J-20 hasn't seen any action so far. And the Meteor missile on the Rafale makes it far more lethal than the J-20.
I do believe that the stealth characteristics of the J-20 are also suspect. It's got canards in front, which definitely is indicative of the fact that its stealth cannot be too good. Its weapon systems, capabilities, its performance, I don't think would be a patch on what the Rafale brings to the field.
The long-range scalp mounted on the Rafales can take out air-to-ground targets over 500 kilometers away. Meteor missiles can hit targets that are well out of visual range. And the Mika missiles can be used both for visual and beyond visual range engagements in the air.
The Rafale brings with it a package of weapon systems that is tried and tested, making it a potent machine. And what's most significant is the fact that not just the Rafale fighter jet, but also the Indian Air Force pilots and the ground crew is fully ready to make sure that the Rafale can be pressed into action in a very short notice if required. With camera person Sanjeev Kumar, Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
The Indian Air Force says the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. And that's exactly what our pilots have been doing. It's an excellent weapon platform. It comes with the meteors, it comes with the scalp, and Shiv and Abhishek Bhalla have been telling you about these missiles. It also comes with the hammer. Before we hammer home that point, let's tell you that these aircraft aren't coming a moment too soon. At the line of actual control, there is a tense standoff with China. So you have your Su-30, the Mirages, the MiG-29s. They've been flying virtually non-stop. Then there's tension with Pakistan at the line of control. Remember, there have been ceasefire violations. So in this scenario, the Indian Air Force has actually been testing every weapon and system to the optimum, including the pilots.
With India's first Rafales inbound, India's public has one question above all. Will the Rafales play a role in Ladakh? Like all things military, it's a complex answer. So stay with us as we take you through it step by step. Question 1. Will the Rafales be deployed in Ladakh? First things first, the Rafales will be based at Haryana's Ambala, which as you can see is 430 kilometers from Ladakh, which may seem like a lot, but it's a very short distance in supersonic fast fighter jet terms and can be covered very quickly. More importantly, the Rafale's range and its combat radius is a staggering 1700 kilometers, which means the aircraft and its weapons are a direct threat to all zones covered by that circle, which very much includes eastern Ladakh, Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin, Tibet, Pakistan and POK. Question number 2. Can Rafales operate from Ladakh? The answer to that question is a big yes. In fact, one of the India-specific enhancements on the Rafale is a modification of the fighter's twin-jet engines, allowing them to operate at extreme cold temperatures of the high-altitude air bases like Leh. Question number 3. Don't Indian Air Force pilots need time to train? The Indian Air Force has clearly stated that its pilots are fully operational on the Rafale and its advanced weapon systems. And while the jets can always be deployed where and when necessary, specific mission familiarization has actually already begun. Since June, Indian pilot trainees in France have specifically been flying simulated combat profiles mirroring missions over Ladakh, with true depictions of terrain and deployments. The Rafale combat simulators and training equipment allow pilots to load scenarios of choice and fly missions in a highly realistic artificial intelligence setting. While this can only be the next best thing to actual flights, it's an indication of a move to get combat ready quickly. Question 4. How will China react to the Indian Rafales? Well, after the Rafales arrive, while pilots will spend time stretching their wings and discovering their combat qualities, the jets will already have a psychological effect across the border. Every time the adversary spots an aircraft on the Indian side, they will assume it's the Rafale with all its advanced long-range weaponry, and that itself can have an effect on any potential battle. The belief that India will always put its best foot forward in a combat scenario could have a deterrent effect. Question 5. Is the Rafale better than Chinese jets? While the Chinese Air Force has capable aircraft and in large numbers, the Rafale currently outclasses them in all parameters, including combat radius, range, weaponry, and very importantly, in terms of electronic warfare. China's most advanced jet, the 5th generation J-20 stealth fighter, should theoretically be a superior aircraft. But without combat experience like the Rafale, and China likely unwilling to expose its jet to Indian sensors, the advantage stands eroded for now. But the Chinese jet is still a reminder that India still doesn't have a true stealth fighter aircraft yet. And finally, can 5 Rafales make a difference? Well, the 5 Rafales arriving are just the first batch, with more aircraft to arrive in installments for a total of 36 jets by 2023. And while there can be no replacement for sheer numbers, it's also important to note that the Rafale is an enormously capable weapons platform, and even a handful of these jets, flying with other Indian Air Force jets in combat packages, could pack a serious deterrent and offensive punch. Bureau Report, India Today.
Remember, the focus is on offensive punch, because the Rafales not only come with the scalps and the meteors and spice later, but also with the hammer. Highly agile, maneuverable munition with an extended range, air to ground, which can hit a target 60 kilometers away. So not a defensive weapon. Take a look.
India's first Rafales will land at their home base in Ambala. Their game-changing weapons have already arrived, with pilots fully operational and trained in their use. And now, just days before the super-modern jets arrive, and as the India-China disengagement in eastern Ladakh grinds to a troubling halt, the Indian Air Force has decided to exercise emergency purchase powers to add another weapon to its Rafale jets. The French Hammer is a combat-proven precision-guided munition kit that takes dumb bombs and converts them into smart standoff strike weapons, capable of hitting reinforced targets with devastating accuracy from high altitudes. The Hammer, operational on combat-deployed French Rafales, is an accurate strike weapon with a range of up to 60 kilometers, has the advantage of accuracy even from very high-altitude launch, and can easily destroy reinforced positions, including subterranean bunkers. The Hammer system has been used for pinpoint strikes in Afghanistan and Libya. The Hammer is made by French company Safran, the same conglomerate that makes the Rafale's M88 jet engines. In 2016, just months before India signed the deal for 36 Rafale jets, Safran entered into a joint venture partnership with an Indian company to manufacture the Hammer system in India. But the Hammer kits, ordered under emergency rules by the Indian Air Force, will likely come directly from France. By choosing to acquire the Hammer weapon, the Air Force has exercised an option that was made available to it back in 2016. At that time, India had decided to integrate the Israeli Spice weapon with its Rafales. That's right, the same family of precision strike weapons that were used in the 2019 Balakot airstrikes in Pakistan.